Eric, what is the best bourbon cocktail?
Either straight or give me a whiskey sour.
Oh, wait, egg whites or no? Because I like a good whiskey sour. I also do like a good neat bourbon cocktail. That was going to be my underrated take, was that the best way to prepare a bourbon is just neat. Because
it's just neat. Yeah. I think it's straight to the point, man. Probably underrated, but perfectly rated. Just it's right on time. What about you, man?
My favorite is a mint julep. Very partial to a mint julep because my wife is from Louisville, Kentucky, and it just I love mints. Like if I can go for a mint chocolate chip ice cream, I'm getting that like 9 times out of 10. We'll get into this.
It's a terrible take.
How is that a terrible take?
Because mint chocolate chip ice cream tastes like frozen toothpaste. It's nasty.
So you're of the opinion that any mint flavor anything tastes like toothpaste?
No. Don't take it that far. I say anything mint and chocolate is like really like terrible. Like nah, can't do it. It's
this
terrible.
Time of
mint
year,
julep, I'm with you though.
This time of year, I'm just housing mint M&Ms. Mint M&Ms are in my freezer. I have another hot take, which is that every candy tastes better, chocolate candy in particular. Any chocolate candy deserves to be in the freezer. So that way it doesn't melt in your hands when you take it out. Yeah.
All right. You know what? I'm not going to kill you on that one, but the chocolate mint situation, bro, we got to talk about that.
This is Pack Your Knives. I'm Tom Haberstroh.
I'm Eric Adjepong.
Wow, that is that we got off on a great foot here. Is just that you are disagreeing with my take that mint chocolate chip ice cream is amazing. And like Breyer's mint chocolate chip, come on, man.
There's so many other things that you can indulge in, and then you decide mint chocolate chip. Like why?
Because it's delicious. It's amazing.
I think I'm eating like a tube of toothpaste with like chocolate sauce on top of it. No thanks.
Well, the reason why they put toothpaste with mint flavor is because it's delicious, and they incentivize you to brush your teeth with something delicious. They're not putting chocolate in toothpaste. They're not putting what's Eric Adjepong's favorite ingredient. They're not putting that flavor in toothpaste. What, you like cinnamon? You like bubble gum?
Sure, that's like yeah. I mean, you might find that, but like a caramel toothpaste, you're right. I wouldn't go for that.
Ooh. I want to know the history of how they landed on mint toothpaste. This might be for the next pod. Is like when did that come in? Was mint considered a breath freshener, like that was always signifying fresh breath, and so they were like, oh, let's go with that because your breath tastes better or smells better with mint. It's the best fragrance.
Truthfully, it does. It's like spearmint, mint. It's a natural breath freshener. So whether there'll be like, it's been plenty of times this happened where you have just a bunch of mint in the refrigerator in the walk-in, and then you either have a guest or there's like no gum or no sort of like breath freshener around. Just go downstairs and just chew on a bunch of mint and you're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My daughter used to do that. So in the in-laws, their house or their grandparents' house, they just have a mint garden, right? It's just a bunch of mint in the backyard. And my like 2-year-old would just go and eat like handfuls of mint. She just would love going out there. And I'm like, why don't you just go brush your teeth instead and you'll get the same high. But no, toothpaste is processed. Why am I telling my daughter to eat and consume processed foods when she can get the natural thing outside?
This is coming from a guy who likes mint chocolate chip ice cream.
Come on. All right. Here we go. We are coming to you not live like we did in person in our kickoff launch episode. Eric, this is our first recap episode that we're doing. Congratulations, you've done
Cheers.
it. We started our first recap episode, and we're not going to recap the latest Top Chef episode. We're not going to do a finale. We're actually going to do your debut on the Top Chef scene. Season 16, season premiere, season Kentucky. 2018 is when it debuted. And I asked you, Eric, for our first recap. We're going to kind of, do a little bit of warm up leading up to the next season of Top Chef Canada.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are we going to do for our first episode recap, just to kind of get the juices flowing?
Why not
And
bring
we
out
landed,
the worst memories in PTSD by bringing out the first episodes that I literally was ever on Top Chef on? Why not? Like, that's a good call.
yeah. And we watched it, and it brought back a lot of memories for me, because it was the season premiere of Top Chef Kentucky, which was very close to my heart because my wife's from there. And we went to Top Chef, the Restaurant Wars in Lexington for that Restaurant Wars, which as we established in the last episode, Eric, we met without knowing it.
Without knowing each other, right? So many sort of full circle moments with this. You know what? I joke, but I'm happy that we are kicking things off with the first episode, season 16. Biasly, obviously, one of the greatest seasons of Top Chef, I would say. But man, watching that episode brought back so many memories. I literally was just like transported back to day one. It really was. Like, I was watching it, but I'm like, oh, I was there too. And just kind of like this sort of, I don't even know how to say it. Just like there, but then also foreshadow back. It was just a lot. It was a lot. It was good.
Was it a little out of body watching yourself in this? Like weird to watch yourself cooking in your first Top Chef. You've been on TV. I've been on TV. This whole experience of watching yourself is always cringe. It's really hard to do that in the same way that people hate listening to their own voice. Watching yourself on screen is very difficult to do. We're all our greatest critic, but for you, this, I can't remember, Eric, were you on like Food Network or Bravo or any sort of food TV programs before you were on Top Chef at this point?
I had done one episode of Chopped, and then nothing up until 2018. So it was one episode versus like an overarching sort of long arc sort of series. So nothing to that size as Top Chef had, not with that many people around me. You're sizing people up. People are sizing you up. So much to get into.
You know, what was your, how did you meet everybody? Because the episode kicks off where you guys are kind of walking into Churchill Downs and Padma is like, hey, welcome everybody. And you have to break off into teams of 3 to do your first quick fire. But had you met everybody off screen before you go into Churchill Downs? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, good question. So we were in the sponsored BMW cars, and there was like 4 of us to a group. So I met, I think in my car was Brandon, Pablo, I want to say Caitlin, and maybe just me. So we were driving, and then other cars had another, 3 or 4 sets of chefs in there. So we all get to like where the horses are sort of kind of kept in the stable, and literally on ice. So, like right before we talk about a show, there's always those things that we really want to talk about, but it's like, save it for the show. Literally the same moments, like they put us on ice. And for those who don't know, on ice is like literally don't talk to anybody, don't say anything. Whatever you want to say, save it for camera. So we're literally in a stable with strangers, don't know each other, but knowing that we're going to have to compete against each other in some sort of fashion in the next, 30 minutes or so. The most intimidating stuff, I didn't recognize anybody, but I did notice that Kelsey and Sarah saw each other and recognized each other. I did see that. Yeah. Yeah.
And you said that before, is that they were the only chefs that kind of knew each other going into the competition.
Yeah, definitely. And that right there it's a kind of like it's a nice advantage. I don't know if advantage, but it's a nice sort of like breaking the ice moment where you just recognize a friend in a crowded room. You know what I mean? And you can lock eyes with someone. And it's like, oh man, I know you, you know me. So even though we're in this like sort of social experiment competition sort of situation, there's a little bit of sort of comfort that I think those two had with each other. And clearly it showed throughout the show. They were locked step with each other, and that was that. But man, I think number one, Brandon and Brian, the wafts of the hair, and it's just how just like pompous and just beautiful it was.
The pompadour, the pompadour,
the pompadour, man. It was quite a sight to see, even in person. And Brian is a huge man too, so that was just like stature, like it's intimidating. You know what I mean? And then right next to her is like Needy and tall, skinny and just, short and just like the cutest. So it was just like everyone there. It was a mix of all of it, bro. And it was really just, what in the world are we getting into? And I remember, man, getting mic'd up right before we got on, and I'm asking myself, like, "Are you sure? Like, you want to do this? This is it?"
Can I back out now?
It's one of those things. Yeah, can I back out now? And then you get into it, and boom, the gorgeous, wonderful Padma is right there with Tom, and this amazing sort of backdrop at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, so I'm to scene set for the listeners here. This is the season in which, Chef, you were a finalist along with Kelsey and Sarah. I went back and listened to Kevin and I's our recap of this episode.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
And a few things jumped out. One is we did the draft after watching this episode that we just watched. And so here was our ranking, or at least the draft order in that recap episode that Kevin and I did. I had the first overall pick, and this is a good way for the listeners to remember faces to names and who was on this season of Top Chef. I had the number 1 overall pick, and I took Natalie because she won with the lox of crudo. And she had this amazing redemption arc where she said, I just broke up with my ex and he was a huge Top Chef fan. And so I'm sticking it to him. And I won Top Chef the first episode. So take that. I took Natalie number 1 overall. Kevin went with Eddie, Conrad, and Pablo in the second and third pick. I took Nini, for the 4th pick, and Justin with the 5th pick. So you haven't been picked yet.
Shame.
The 6th pick, Michelle Minori. Kevin took Michelle. 7, David Viana. Kevin, then, this is amazing. I totally forgot about this, Eric, but I had traded in the previous episode of Pack Your Knives. I had traded I made a trade with Kevin that involved a pick swap for his 4th pick and my 5th pick. We swapped it. And so he originally was going to pick 9 and 10, but I swapped the 10th pick and the 8th pick. So he came in at 8. And who does he pick? Eric Adjepong.
Your boy. Shout out to Kevin. A smart man.
Very, very smart.
Shame on you, bro.
I was mad, dude. I was, if you listen back, it was the December 6th episode, 2018 on Pack Your Knives. I got real mad when Kevin selected you with the 8th pick, and I named you Sexy Eric because you were named one of the America's Sexiest Chefs.
Oh, man.
Right before that season of Top Chef. And so that was the only thing besides your bio that I could associate you with, was that you were just this sex god or whatever. And Kevin's like, all right, I'm a gay man from LA. That is not why I picked Eric Adjepong. It's because he had amazing food. And I was like, touche, but I'm just saying that's how I'm nicknaming Eric here so I can remember him. And we both said, I think he's going to go long in this competition.
Yeah.
And we were absolutely right, is that Eric, even though you weren't in the top, you finished 3rd in this season of Top Chef. So continuing on, Brian Young was at 9. Kelsey was at 10. Kelsey won the whole damn thing, and she was the 10th pick. And then followed that up with Sarah Bradley. Kevin got Sarah, and he said she was the dark horse. I can't believe we were able to get Sarah at 11. Adrian, Brandon, Kevin, Sharp, and then we actually had this last chance kitchen trio of chefs that were parked there until they could get back into the competition. Chef Carey, Brother Luck, and Jim, Alabama Jim. And so they were kind of parked in last chance kitchen, and then at the 18th pick was Caitlin, who was eliminated. And so if she had come through on Last Chance Kitchen, maybe she would have, added a point. But that's the list. That was 1 through 18.
A lot of value picks. A lot of value picks on that one. I mean, it
was a stacked season, dude. I felt like your season was really strong.
100%. I mean, Kelsey at 10, going at 10 really goes to show man, you're only as strong as your last cook, but then also, you cook really, really well. In Natalie's case, she won that first episode. And then, as we all know, was eliminated the episode after. And that shook everyone because, sort of like you, we kind of sized her up immediately. Like, all right, she's the one to beat. She has the target on her back. And then it humbled us all when she got eliminated, like, the next season, or excuse me, the next episode. And it really went to show, like, this is like a true crapshoot. I always say, like, if you roll the dice 100 times, you might get different winners every different season. Like, it really all depends on what episodes and what challenges kind of fall on, the specific times of the season. And it really kind of shows, one, the endurance that one takes, right? Some people come out the gate really, really hot, really, really strong. Some people get a little stronger towards the end, in the middle. And some people just kind of stay and maintain and sort of just, kind of just keep that sort of, not plateau, but rather just keep a short, straight line and then really go up. And I think that's what I did. Like, I was in the middle for,
you're just kind of lingering around.
A little rope
around, and then 100%. Once everyone's tiring out, you come in with a hate.
And then you come in with some hate. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, that was my strategy. I think that was the strategy for Kevin as well. Just kind of come in, not necessarily under the radar, but I think I mentioned, or Tom mentioned this in this show, like, if you played it for the middle and other people are playing to win, then you really kind of put yourself out there. Like, you're cooking good food, but some people are really, really like going for it. And yeah, Kevin actually ended up being on the bottom for playing a relatively delicious, I'd have a beaten ricotta dish any day of the week, but it's pretty safe. You know what I mean?
Totally. And the way that they broke it off into the groups was, and Padma was just like, hey, you 15 chefs that you've never met before, go break off into groups of 3. And yeah. Kevin and I always talk about how it seems like a backyard or playground, recess, just awkward picking teams where you're like, oh, I guess I'll match up with you. Do you remember why you chose Kelsey and Caitlin in that group, or was it total proximity?
Total proximity. They were the closest to me. And I didn't want to, man, I remember being there and not wanting to kind of like look over and see what's, the chefs on the other side. I wanted to play it cool. One thing I always kind of kept in mind was that you don't want to necessarily look like you're, doing too much on TV, So I always kind of kept it just a little bit under the radar. They were closest to me. We're all just new and relatively new, so no one knows each other's skill set. So I was like, all right, cool, ladies, let's do this. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, and you guys had to do a mise en place. Like, you basically, you could only use what you had chopped up, like, with your knife. And then after you use those ingredients or chop them up, then you can no longer use your knife, which I thought, like, this is a pretty good challenge. Like, this is a really interesting challenge. It was creative, and they used that formation, those groups, to arrange the elimination challenge, where in the elimination challenge, instead of playing with your group, you're playing against your group. And on top of that, there was the whole win, place, or show Kentucky Derby whole horse racing thing of like win, place, or show, which for those who are listening and don't know, if you go and bet on a horse at Churchill Downs in Kentucky or anywhere, you can bet a horse to win. You can bet a horse to show, which is to place in second place. Or sorry, win, place, or show. Win, place is second, and then show is third place. So you can do those bets, and there's 3 chefs. And so it worked out: win, place, and show. Win, you get to go and be part of like the top 3 or the winner circle. Right. Place, you are safe. And then if you show, you are in the bottom and you can be eliminated. So Eric, I thought this was a really smart challenge construction. What did you think as you're rewatching this, now that you've got like a 30,000 foot view on this and you're not panicking as it's going on? I thought it was pretty creative and clever.
Objectively, absolutely. Yeah. Because in the previous seasons, you'll see just like the traditional sort of like mise en place race, who can get what done and the fastest or whatever the case is. But obviously playing into the theme and the sort of setting, Churchill Downs, we're in Kentucky. Why not kind of like give this an entirely different spin? The fastest 2 minutes though, man, that what to me was just, I prep fast. We talked about this. I prep really fast, but you don't know the laurels and the sort of like skill set of the other 2 chefs that you have. So it was kind of a point where we had one person Kelsey sort of direct where the dish was going, and then Caitlin and I was just kind of like prepping like crazy. And,
yeah, well,
and
how did you choose the food to use? I mean, I think there was like a whole spread of different ingredients,
yeah,
and then you guys got to pick. Do you remember like how it got?
We did. So now, again, like you said, the 30,000-foot view, Kelsey loves oysters, or if she said it, oysters. So oysters.
Dothan, Alabama there. Yeah.
Yeah, the little album. But she saw the oysters and was like, I want to do that. And I was like, all right, cool. It's pretty easy to shuck. You don't have to portion it afterwards, which was a really like key moment, because we saw Justin's team, we saw Sarah's team. I think they were on the same team. Justin and Sarah, they have an issue with actually portioning their. I think they had not rabbit. It was beef or something like that.
Yeah, they had a steak and they couldn't
portion it right after,
and they had to totally audible after that. Yeah,
right. So we had in mind like what we would be doing without any sort of knives. Yeah, you have utensils, but like we're not going to be gnawing at like a bunch of steak and trying to like portion it out evenly. So she said, let's do oysters. She shucked them relatively fast, and then started making like this lacquer succotash situation. And then, all right, cool. I'll prep the veggies. Like I'll get the bell peppers, I'll get the onions, I'll get whatever we need to kind of like give some body to this. And Caitlin was, helping to make the succotash as well. So we had a dish, and I think, Tom mentioned it. This is a dish that you can probably remake somewhere else, because it felt very complete. It felt very like one-minded, in sync, as far as the flavors that we were going with. So we saw the oysters and went directly for that, because one, it's low maintenance as far as just like, if you know how to work around the oyster, you can get it shucked relatively quick. Put that to the side, get your herbs, get your veggies, and let's cook. 2 minutes goes by so fast. So we weren't trying to like break down a rabbit or, portion out, a sirloin or whatever the case is, because that's obviously going to take a lot more time.
Yeah. So you go with that, and you go into the quick fire, and, They loved your dish, and they said, Tom said, this feels like something that you could run at a restaurant. And I'm wondering, did you guys ever use, either three of you, did you ever use that dish later in any sort of, even at an event? Like, did you recreate this at like a Top Chef event where you're like, let's do that succotash we did in episode 1?
We absolutely should have. Kelsey and I have done so many events thereafter, and never actually brought up the idea of using that sort of dish and kind of 2.0ing it and making it, with time and no 2-minute like time limit, underneath us, and to make that. But I feel like this is something that Kelsey does anyway. She loves, again, being in Alabama and around the coast. Like, she has the oysters around her. She loves the cornmeal batter. Like, that is her, like, that's her bag. So I'm pretty sure she's made some sort of version of succotash 100%. But like the cornmeal fried oyster, I've seen it before from her. So she was definitely cooking within her wheelhouse. And I think that's so smart, like, especially when you're kind of sizing yourself up against other people. You're obviously in a competition. You want to do something that's super familiar to yourself, and having her sort of direct where we were going as far as like going the oysters and using that protein as the focal point for our dish, and then kind of building the succotash around it just made sense. It's vegetal. It has a little bit of broth to it. It's got a little bit of that sort of oceanic sort of flavor profile from the lacquer that we use. The texture from the cornmeal, I remember being so crispy and just light. And I tried it and I looked at her. I'm like, all right, she knows what she's doing. After you taste the food and you get to kind of size people up as you're cooking, because that's literally what's happening too. I remember I'm like, all right, yeah, this is good. This is flavored. This is seasoned. This is really good. And I was happy with the direction that we went in. So I would absolutely love to do that dish again. But no, we never actually had the opportunity to do it again. It's crazy. You're right.
All right. So, I don't think you win that competition, right? The quick fire actually went towards, Sarah and Justin's team, because they did the poached egg instead of the meat. And I'm wondering what your thoughts were on that. And even in the moments that they won that dish, because you guys got high praise for yours, but they won with that poached egg dish when they were calling an audible instead of doing steak. They really liked that one.
It was a clever move. You have protein in the fridge, in the little cooler that we had set up, and they saw the eggs and they had to pivot, and clearly it was good on them. They used the tallow from the beef to kind of create a little bit of that fatty unctuousness. So they didn't necessarily throw it away. And I thought that was brilliant. Like they didn't, because pivoting really kind of requires you to start all over. So they didn't really like fully pivot. They used a little bit of the tallow and they kind of just really just reimagined what that dish would be with the, you know, more sort of humble protein, the egg, and poaching it perfectly, using that beet reduction to kind of glaze it on top. Sounded absolutely delicious. So I remember hearing that. But also we're close enough to each other as we're prepping, so we can kind of hear what each other's doing and, you know, as the competition, as the, you know, is going. And I definitely remember hearing them say steak, 100%. So to hear afterwards that they went egg, it was kind of like, oh, where'd that come from? But clearly it worked for them. And they, till this day, man, they won't let us have it. So we're all in a group chat. And they might bring up like that photo they took at Churchill Downs at the last Kentucky or the next Kentucky Derby. And they're all in their hats. Justin's in his hat. Pablo's in his hat. Sarah's got, you know, her whole getup as well. And man, they literally, that's like bragging rights is one thing, but when you can have like that one up, that first challenge, you know, and everybody knows they were gunning for it, they won't let us have it, man. They won't let us hear the end of it. So it was good.
I was wondering about that. So you, the stakes were, if you win this elimination or the quick fire, you get to go to the next Kentucky Derby. So they did go, is what you're saying. Yeah, they did go, absolutely. And they rubbed it in your face as they sent you the pictures while you're drinking a mint julep at the thing, and you just got to like block them. You're like, I don't want to see this. So they did get to go, and that seemed like a pretty good time.
No, 100%, man. I'm happy that they went. They went together, which was really cool. I think Sarah, being from Kentucky, she hosted. So I remember Justin and Pablo both flew from Minnesota and Miami, and they had a whole weekend, man. And they really had like the VIP sort of like access to it as well. So they were like in the pit. They were talking. They were with like the people. They were drinking a ton of mint juleps. They were having a great time. And I remember just being in the cold, and literally working and kind of just the same thing, man. You just want to like block your phone, block them. But it is what it is. Like if I was them, I would probably do the same thing. So I get it.
Okay. So then you go from the quick fire to the house. Now this is really interesting. I kind of forgot a couple things that like, as you're watching, you don't remember this, but it is, it kind of sticks out after watching so many recent episodes of Top Chef, when they've gotten rid of the whole house thing. So we're not sending chefs to live in, you know, camp quarters, right, in cabins or at one big house, real world style. And two, there's no Gail. Like I was like, wait, where's Gail? And she wasn't there. So I was, two things that stuck out to me as I'm watching. But when they present this house, it's like this old southern white giant mansion in Kentucky. And I was like, oh yeah, they used to live together in these houses. So talk to me about this house, this house that you guys stayed in. It was in Louisville. And I mean, you guys know that you're going to stay in a house together, but I guess you're pull up to this like palace
we knew, but we didn't know it was that. Like it was a spectacle, man. And we got some like digs on the house itself. At one point, maybe like 5 years prior, it was the biggest house in the entire state of Kentucky, like the entire state. So that to us was just like, yo, we've got it made. We walk in and it's just like, you know, the scene in Titanic when they walk into like the ballroom and everyone's just kind of playing the violin. It felt like that grandiose, man. Like it was insane. Walking in, seeing that like amazing stairwell, the chandeliers, walking around, seeing the kitchen. And immediately, man, I knew that house was not just meant for us to be living in. I knew at some point we'd be doing a challenge in there because it would just make sense. Like the kitchen was just enough for like 30 people easily. We had to have been cooking in there at some point. So you're kind of like sizing up the house. You're sizing up each other. There's a lot of emotions going on, but I just remember it being so big. But then even too, like behind the curtains, we didn't get to see the entire house. We were privy to like maybe half of the house. The other half was meant for like the production crew, the film crew, the audio team. We did our interviews in another like corridor in the house. We lived in one sort of like blockade in the house. And then the other house was just completely off limits. We had red tape. You know, can't pass here, all that stuff. So it's wild because yesterday you sent me the listing to the house And I'm flicking through. I'm like, wait, I've never seen this room. I've never seen that room. There's a pool in there. We heard
That's
about the pool,
wild.
but I've never seen the pool ever. I'm actually glad that they never allowed us into the pool because that would have been insane. um,
There
but
have been some pool scenes in Top Chef for sure. Uh, the
yeah,
whole
man,
thing, the fact that all right, so right now I'm looking at the listing and my wife was like, oh, I recognize that house. I think it's in
insane.
Wolf Pen or whatever neighborhood it was. And sure enough, it's 17,000 square feet, this house, 6 bedrooms, 10 bath. And wait, is it an indoor pool or an outdoor pool? And you guys didn't even know it existed?
No, it was an indoor pool. We had no idea it existed at all. Like no one knew, probably up until like the last day, when it's like three of us in the house, five of us in the house, and then we found out like, oh yeah, there's a pool. So I think one of the PAs, the production assistants, or told us like there's a pool in here. We had literally no idea that we were right next to an indoor pool.
I'm seeing it. Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
pool.
there's a pool inside. It's massive. It's like damn near Olympic size. So it's pretty sizable. But let's talk about the outside as well. Like the grounds were just amazing. Like you can go off for miles, it felt like, and just still be on the property. Obviously, we had the garden there as well, which was pretty cool. And seeing that, so kind of again putting those like little pieces together, having a garden, having this massive kitchen. I'm like, there has to be something that we would be doing in this house. But yeah, we got in the house. We ended up kind of just picking roommates immediately. So I roomed with Pablo and Justin. Those are my guys. And in our room, and they became my closest friends throughout the competition. But it was a wild moment, man. I'll never forget that. And then we're secluded too, so like or sequestered rather. So quarantine, all that. Like we have no access to the outside world. There was just this one room full of like old school VHSs, like the Batman from 1990, and like like all these like man, the movies
Yeah,
they
like
have.
Risky Business and like
Risky
random
Business and like dude, it was like
The
Terminator.
Godfather. You had random VHS tapes just thrown
Random
about in
VHS
this.
tapes, 100%. And then just like board games and books, tons and tons of books. I remember that. Books for days. Like they had a huge library that was like color coordinated. And that for the most part was everyone's sort of like reprieve. Like everyone would just grab a book and then go to their room and just kind of read up on whatever, like any sort of random, bit of information or, fiction or novel or romance or whatever. And that's how we lived for X amount of weeks as well.
So I said, yeah, I showed Allison now to my wife. I was like, do you recognize that house? And she's like, yeah. And you sent it to the group chat. I want to pause there and just say, I just love that you guys still have a group chat.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Nini's birthday was a couple of days ago. Everybody's wishing her a happy birthday. We check in. I mean, now it's been how many years? 8 years, just about 6 years. Sorry,
7 years. So
Six,
yeah,
7 years.
you taped in summer of 2018, maybe
summer 28. So yeah, so 6 years, just about, and it's so amazing how the family's kind of grown. Like people have children, and people are moving, and really life is happening in between. And it's funny because I was watching and I'm like, man, there's a lot of less grays going on back then than it was now. David had the beautiful sort of jet black. You look at David now and it's all peppered and looks amazing. Yep. Same thing with me. It's coming out like it's happening, man. So we are definitely still
you look
tight.
like babies. You're such babies. And it was only like 6 years ago, man. But man,
yeah.
It's been a long 6 years for everybody going through COVID and all this stuff and kids and all that. We've all gotten a lot older and grayer since 2018. And that was one thing I noticed when I was watching, because I hung out with Sarah Bradley this past summer when we went down to her restaurant at Freight House in Paducah. And she looks so different. You look different. We all looked so much younger in 2018, man. We were all such babies back then.
We were all such babies, and who would have thought how the world would have changed in a couple of years, man? Yeah, it was wild just watching that again, a couple of nights ago and seeing the youthfulness of everyone, man, and just kind of going back to that. But it was cool, man. It was a really good time, and it was awesome to be around those people. So yeah, we still have the group chat. We still keep up with each other. I hung out with David a couple of weeks ago. I see Nini all the time. Pablo is one of my best friends. He just got engaged a couple of weeks ago. So it's really good to just keep up with everyone. Kevin, I talk to as often as I can. Eddie Money, I talk to as often as I can. So man,
so is Eddie still he's in Philly still, right? Yeah.
He's in Philly. Yeah. Eddie's still in Philly. Natalie's still in Philly, and just kind of keeping up with everyone. It's been great. And we always celebrate each other, and it's just cool. So we have that group chat. It's called ex-cons. For whatever reason, I don't know. But it's ex-cons, and all of us are in there. It's nuts.
All right. So I don't want to speak out of turn here, but the whole Caitlyn and Brian storyline is so amazing.
Yeah.
So we're watching this, and I totally forgot that Brian and Caitlyn have since been a couple, and they met on Top Chef, and then they married. I'm pretty sure they're married together, and they open a restaurant together or some sort of shop together. That's cool. I mean, that is wild that they met at Top Chef. Is that the first Top Chef wedding?
You know what? That's a good question. I would have to say yes. Yes.
Right?
The answer is yeah, I would say so.
I can't remember people meeting on Top Chef and getting hitched. I don't recall that.
People have met, but not
especially in those quarters. Yeah,
especially in those quarters. Together. For sure. But no, take it out and make it public and really build a life together. I would say this is the first time. Caitlyn and Brian, man, you would see, and again, there's nothing but space, time, and opportunity in that house, right? You were just talking to each other, but immediately you can tell, everyone can tell that hey, there's a little something going on over here. They just clicked immediately. Caitlyn would laugh at every single thing, and then listen, Brian's pretty funny. He's hilarious. But she would just have an extra sort of giggle about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was all right, this is not that funny. And then Brian, man, just smooth as can be. Just always was a gentleman and always kind of just looked out for Caitlyn. And that was really cool to watch as well. So, it was awesome.
That was wild to watch. And there was even a little flicker of kind of that flirting on the screen where I was watching. And I was like, ooh, she does kind of have a little sparkle in her eye when Brian's nearby. So that was pretty wild. And I remember Brian because he was the host of Northeast, your restaurant wars. And so it was really cool. And he's a Boston guy. So as a New Englander, I was always just oh, that's cool. But he's huge. The dude is so big.
Massive.
That can't be good in a Top Chef competition to just be that big. And you're a big dude, but he's big.
Here's the thing, man. I and not even just in the Top Chef circle, in life, I don't like standing next to people who are taller than me. It just makes me feel a lot smaller. Inferior, it does. It really does. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe I can talk to him about my therapist. But Brian, man, it's just
Maze checking in the chat. He said, "I'm sorry, Eric."
When Maze, I think I mentioned that when we saw Maze too. I'm like, bro, stand over there, please. But Brian, man, he was a massive dude, and then with the pompadour, he's probably an extra 5 inches of height given to him as well. But he's as soft as a teddy bear, the coolest guy, so charming, which is why he was the host for Northeast. Has the gift of gab, hilarious in conversation, and obviously an amazing chef as well. So it was he kind of mitigates his sort of appearance and sort of that broliness and maybe some of that intimidation with just how soft and just how charming he is. And clearly that caught the eye of Caitlyn. It caught the eye of everyone, but especially Caitlyn.
Well, Caitlyn falls in the bottom of this episode where she does the biscuits, the tomato biscuits that she admittedly was putting the biscuits on top of these boiled tomatoes or whatever, stewed tomatoes, and then it just kind of made the biscuits soggy. But to pull back a little bit, to get back to this episode, you guys would do 5 mini competitions against each other, and you're in this ballroom. I forget if they mentioned this, where it was, but this felt really stressful to me. Is you're doing in front of a live audience, you're finding out whether you won the dish while you're serving to 200 VIP guests in their Sunday best or their Kentucky Derby best. And it's the summer, it's hot. Everyone's nervous.
I'm sweating. I don't know if you noticed. I was sweating buckets. I'm completely nervous to your point. And yes, it's 200 people in the room, but we had to end up making like almost 300 portions because people want seconds. You got to make stuff for the staff and all that. So it was a lot of food to prep. And then it's all sort of front facing. You're charming, you're being hospitable, you're talking about your dish, you're saying hello, but then also you're in competition mode, and you're trying to get in somebody's head, whether you are or not. That's happening. Shout out to Brandon. And then
wait. I was going to say, Brandon was portrayed as the biggest asshole on the planet in this episode. And as I'm watching, I'm like, is he really that much of a dick, or is it that's the editing?
They can only use what they got. So it is what it is.
You're playing it cool in the back. You don't want to like step on anybody. You're just you don't want to step on chill.
You know what?
And here comes Brandon.
Yeah. Brandon came in hot, man. He came in hot. He was, he talked about his credentials coming from Napa Valley and in California and some of the food and the clients that he had. And, he spoke a good gab, man. He spoke a good thing, and he really kind of played himself up. Yeah, he can talk. And he really like put himself out there. And he continued to do that. So it got to a point where like, it was just about like cooking, let the proof kind of come out in your food. But when you don't know anybody and it's just all you can do is talk, like he was there and he was doing it. So there's a little bit of an intimidation factor. I think Brandon was trying to like impart on like, Adrian specifically. He was like right next to her in her ear the entire time. And
being like, are you sure you can cook that pasta or do the tortellini in time? Are you going to have enough time there to do it?
It's so wild. Like after a while, and Brandon, and his personality, he actually means good. He means well. Like he was asking, like, "Hey, I don't know if I would do that. I know, like, you don't have to listen to me, but that's a pretty big task in 2 hours that we have to prep." So it came out really like braggadocious. It came out like a dick, but he honestly meant well. But Brandon, man, he's a phenomenal cook, but boy, can he talk. Yeah, he can talk.
So yeah, Padma's coming in here and she's, the host, the MC of this event. And
looking fantastic, by the way. Fantastic. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that white get up with the little hat. Jeez Louise. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're already just like, man, I knew that they were going to throw me to the wolves, but this first episode, the first challenge, there's no ramp up. You're going to serve 300 portions live and have basically this like 6 different judges tables. You have 5 judges tables for each group. Essentially, each group has a judges table, and then the final judges table. So you're going through these just torrent of emotions so many times over while you're sweating through all this cook. You did what looked to be a delicious dish, and I felt like you were kind of almost educating the judges on West African food while you were like right off the bat, I'm going to come out and do this Ghanaian, Ghanaian. What is it? Is it Ghanaian or Ghanaian? Can you help me out here?
Man. No. You're either right. It's right either way.
Is it?
I say Ghanaian. Yeah, Ghanaian, Ghanaian. It really doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's all the same. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a little bit of an education that I was doing as I'm competing. And that's risky business, man. Like it could have been an easy opportunity for me to go home. But they did mention we can cook whatever we want. So there wasn't any parameters, right? And I know these flavors work very, very well with each other. I've cooked this dish or similar dish like this before, in a fashion where it's easy to kind of like 1-2 biter, a sort of deal. So I knew exactly
raw bay scallop with Ghanaian Shido, honey glazed, pickled shallots, and celery garnish. Tom says a little heat, showcase what West African is all about, or like you said, I want to showcase what West African is all about. And it seemed like the issue here was yours might have been the best tasting or the most interesting, the most memorable. But Kelsey comes in with this pimento cheese deviled egg with pickled mustard seeds. And the Churchill Downs guy just loved it. It seemed like she was playing more to the crowd or more to the event. which is Top Chef. That is part of Top
100%.
Chef, is understanding the challenge, understanding the environment, understanding the stakes. Of course, not just presenting a amazing tasting and presentable dish, but also playing to the parameters, which, Eric, like, I would eat the shit out of the raw bay scallop, and it's a smart dish and it's very flavorful. I just feel like the tiebreaker there was that, you know, it's a pimento cheese deviled egg in Kentucky.
I mean, come on. It's you know your personnel, like know your personnel, know who you're playing against, know who you're cooking for. And Kelsey was that. She mentioned in that episode, like, who's going to throw a Southern party better than me? And honestly, like,
Bingo.
Who? Yeah, like who? Kelsey knows, she knows the palate. I felt like Kelsey could have been there as well. You know, at any, like, she could have been a guest there as well. So she's cooking to essentially placate to the audience, but then also placate to the challenge and the setting, which is so smart. And I commend her for it. It's what you should do. And honestly, that was a calling card. Like, she knew the appropriate times to choose what dish to cook for specific challenges, where I had a very like narrow sort of focus. I'm going to cook this because I want to showcase West African food. So everyone coming with different philosophies of how they're kind of essentially working this Rubik's Cube of season 16 Top Chef. But she just worked it a little bit better than everyone else. And I got to commend her. It was a smart move. It was a very simple move. You know, it could have been easily picked out as a flaw or two if you didn't do it right, because everyone's had the deviled egg before, right? Everyone's had pimento cheese. So if you're not executing it flawlessly, and then adding a unique spin or some sort of like flavor profile that may not be like, traditional, then you're putting yourself out there. It's a risk, even though it is very safe. It could be a risk as well. But she nailed it, man. And I commend her for it. It was a smart move. And the dish was delicious too. I tried it. It was really good.
Were you surprised that she won? In this episode, I'm saying when you guys were pit against each other, were you like, "Ooh, I think I got this one"?
No. I mean, there was an education on me, and I know, again, with my sort of like hand on the Rubik's Cube, I know if I'm trying to figure it out, there is an opportunity where I'm educating, and no one knows what the hell I'm talking about. No one's had this before, and I got that. Like, a bunch of people came over. Like, this is my first time having this sort of like flavor profile with bay scallops. And they enjoyed it, but it was new. So there was a little bit of an education that I had to give as well. Probably in retrospect, not the first dish I would have done again, but I'm glad I wasn't on the bottom. So, I mean, all's well that ends well. Like, at the end of the day, it was seasoned well. It had great spice. It had great texture to it. So all those like elements of a great dish, sweet, spicy, acid, heat, all of that was there. It was just new. It was completely new. It's a new dish, and you're presenting something new to a group of people who just want to have the classics. You know what I mean? They just want.
Was it new to you too?
No, I've made this dish before, or a similar dish. I think that dish was made in Kith and Kin, the restaurant that I was just working at prior. But we use shrimp. We use shrimp instead of scallops. So I don't remember why I went with scallops, probably because of the price and the amount of money that we had, just being a little bit cheaper. But I knew if I can get that sort of like sweet ocean sort of flavor profile paired with the shiitake and, the other pickled elements, the celery, like, this is going to be a delicious dish, whether I had to explain it or not. Like, if I wasn't there and somebody ate it, I think they would really enjoy it. But the education and a little bit of that talking behind it kind of gives it full context. But a deviled egg, like, you just put that in front of anybody, they know exactly what it is. Like, you don't have to explain it. So Kelsey, she played it, man. I wasn't surprised. Honestly, hearing the cobbler dish as well, I was kind of leaning on, and I hate to say this, for the airways, but you kind of hope that someone just messes up their dish, a little bit more than you. And just hearing the day prior, the sort of struggles that Caitlin was going through with her biscuits, and sort of the construction of it all, it sounded like it just was, I don't know, you ever had like a wet burger, like where the bread is soggy and it kind of just ruins the experience. One
of my least favorite things about like Instagramification of burgers is like when they squeeze the burger and like the juices flow out.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be appetizing, but all I can think about is the soggy bun. That's all I can think about.
Literally same here. And that's, I think, what exactly happened with Caitlin's dish. She had a biscuit that's supposed to be crispy on the exterior, fluffy on the interior, but it just all ended up being like a sog, and really the flavors were delicious, but the texture itself, you can't get past that. And that was clearly her downfall.
Okay, so you're the winner was Natalie with her Laksa Crudo.
Yeah.
She wins with that, which I think we talked about it when we reviewed this pod years ago. Just a brilliant conception of a dish.
100%.
Just you're marrying those two kind of dishes together. Crudo, as you pointed out, with the raw base scallop. It's really smart to do something you don't have to cook, so to speak.
Correct.
When you're
Right.
prepping for 300 people, it just makes things
Right.
a little bit easier. Also, you're educating me as we're going through here. As I'm saying a Shito, and you're being like, nah, shita. So I'm learning as we're going here.
It is.
One of the many reasons why I'm very excited to have you unpack your knives is you're going to do a lot of education of this guy. So thank you for that. But the episode, I feel like just last thing here on the episode, two things actually. One is anything on the Whole Foods scene that you remember, or anything about this particular Whole Foods shop that stands out to you, or just a reminder to our audience. The Whole Foods shop is crazy stressful.
Yeah, crazy stressful. I do remember David's situation specifically. David getting to the ringer, because here's the thing: once you get to the register, you can't go back. You're locked in.
And he forgot. The flour. He forgot the flour, and Tom. And he wanted to make the gnocchi, and Tom was like, "Oh, you can't."
Can you make a gnocchi without? Yeah. It's completely Jedi. Just in your head immediately. That's what Tom is so good for.
So to set it up real quick is David goes and does the shop. He wants to do gnocchi and comes back to the cashier, forgets the flour, so he's like freaking out. And later in the episode, when he's presenting the dish, he explains to Tom, who's basically his uncle at this point, because they're both from Elizabeth, New Jersey.
Because they're both from Elizabeth, Jersey. Right. Yep.
And he's like telling Tom, well, I forgot the flour, so I had to go with a potato soup, and I was trying to make a gnocchi, and so you can't make gnocchi without flour. And Tom shoots back at him. He goes, oh, you can't make gnocchi without flour?
So
and
imagine
David
the stress of that.
He just melts right there.
Yeah,
just
imagine
crumbles.
That. I would crumble too. Like, this is a guy that is from your hometown. You're making a dish that he makes pretty much every single day at his restaurant Craft. Here's the thing. Tom has a restaurant called Craft for a reason. This guy knows everything about food. Like, he is a craftsman about his job and his profession and what he does. So, like, when he threw that out there, I remember even just sitting on the side, like, can you make a gnocchi without flour? Like, that was hilarious. But yeah, I remember David, because this is another thing folks don't see in the without the edits. Once you hit the register, you're locked in. You can't go back. They won't allow you to go back. So once you're at the cashier and you're spending money, there's no room to kind of, oh man, I forgot this. So when David forgot, I think I was at the register right before him or maybe right next to him. And I felt so bad, especially for the first challenge. Like, it happens all the time. We've all been there where you forget something, you go back to your car, and then, all right, man, I got to go back into the grocery store and pick whatever flour up, right? But not in this instance. So David flipping that into a soup, using the ingredients that he essentially got. Obviously, he was going to use the potato for the gnocchi, the leeks to kind of help with that flavor profile, and flipping it on his head and making that soup that was absolutely delicious. If he would have made that and said this is what my initial dish was, I think he would have killed it either way. Like, he probably put up more attention onto it and more detail onto it. Mm-hmm. But he flipped a bad situation into something absolutely delicious. To me, watching him do that and kind of pivot in that direction showed me how great of a chef he was. And you see in later episodes, like, he had a streak, maybe 5, 6, 7 wins in a row. He got in his rhythm super early. But like, that right there, even though Natalie won and her dish was extremely impressive, I think David's dish, to me, and the sort of scenario and the situation around that and everything that was kind of faced up against him really showed to me like this guy knows how to cook for sure. And he does.
How much should we pay attention to the first episode? Because we're going to recap that we're going to watch in a few months, the first episode of Top Chef season, Canada.
Yeah.
Like, how much are you going to be reading into the first episode performance?
It tells a lot. It shows your resilience. It shows your creativity. It shows your temperament immediately. And what you can do. Something's going to go wrong somewhere down the line. And how do you fix it? How do you stay cool about it? And how do you present your food? So the first episode absolutely shows a lot. And then you know the edits, you know how that goes. Like usually the first person that's interviewed in the show is probably the first person that's gonna get kicked off because they need as much airtime as possible. So immediately when I remember seeing the show and they started with Caitlin, the first chef that they interviewed, I was like, oh man, oh I remember, yeah, Caitlin's gonna go.
By the way, Carly Levitz, who's now part of Pack Your Knives and contributing to the Substack, has already got a post up that's amazing about the GOAT top chefs, the chefs that have performed at the highest levels, and you have the stats of every Top Chef contestant who like went deep into the competition and their winning percentage, their quick fires, how many times they won an entire episode, kind of like the Triple Crown, where you win both the quick fire and the elimination challenge. So if you haven't subscribed yet to our Substack, packyourknives.com, check out Carly, who's going to do data deep dives on Top Chef and just, I think, a lot more outside of Top Chef 2 down the road is just this data tracking. One of the things I think she's doing, just to tease it a little bit, is what you're describing right now, Eric, is she is going to be breaking down, confessional time, who is the first chef shown, and seeing if there is kind of like a trend of like, oh, if you're the first interview on the first episode, see ya. I wonder how it's going to shake out, but there is going to be a big data deep dive, and we're going to have Carly on to do that. And Eric, if you have any sort of, we're taping this right now, but like if you have ideas of like Carly should research this or do her own research on this aspect to Top Chef, the listeners here, hit us up on packyourknives.com on the Substack or in the comment section on YouTube, but just let us know, because we have the best on the squad, the best researcher on food television in Carly Levitz. So that's one of the things I want to check is the first episode. Is there any way to like kind of game theory or retroactively hack your way into finding out who gets eliminated? Because they got to kind of fit all of that storyline into one episode, to what you said.
They got to make sure everybody has their shine. And to me, that shows exactly that. Like there's a correlation, absolutely. But I'm actually really, really interested in Carly's research and seeing what she comes up with that, because it really is, you think about it, it's 15 personalities, right? They can't necessarily show everyone at the same time for the first episode. So someone's going to go home. We all know that objectively. How do we make sure that we give this respect to that chef? And usually it's the first kind of like, confessional interview sort of situation. So I remember Caitlin's face popping up and I was like, oh man, they did it. They did it. They absolutely did it to her.
But they kind of have to. They kind of like, there's no other way to go around it. There's only so much time, and you can't really go back to that well later when she's eliminated.
That's it. I'd be curious to know what protein, specifically what protein or what cut of protein does has won the most. I'd be really interested. I remember for like 2 seasons, pork belly was like the prize possession. Everyone's doing pork belly. So I wonder if that maybe has skewed something, but like, I'm sure crudo, I'm sure pork belly, I'm sure some sort of like pasta dish, top 3. I would say that off just knowing, watching all seasons of Top Chef, those are probably the 3 things that have like done the
on the flip side too is like what are the worst performing dishes? Risotto is obviously the big one, but maybe it's underrated. Risotto is like, maybe it gets a bad rap.
Yeah. Carly, let's get on that. That'd be awesome.
Speaking of edits, was there anything in this episode, then you watched it, you lived it, anything missing that you were like, oh, they didn't show this, I forgot that this happened, and they didn't actually show that, this to help our audience understand that like there's a lot that happened in that 200 person VIP Kentucky Derby.
That went by cook-off so quickly, man. It went by so fast. I think everything that they showed during that cook-off was pretty much.
Did you get to eat everyone's dishes? Or was it just too many
people?
Only the
people, like, it was too many people, but only like the folks that were probably the closest to me. So I remember Caitlin, obviously Kelsey were right next to me. But then I had David's soup. I had Sarah's pork belly. That was delicious. And I think that was it. No, I tried Pablo's, was it fluke? No, he had tilapia. He had like a tilapia sashimi sort of situation. And that was really yummy as well. But that was it. That was all that I could taste. And then as you're prepping, you can go around and try a little bit of the components here and there. I remember trying Justin's coconut grits. before, he had them and cooled them down. And that was delicious. I agree. A little bit more seasoning, but it was absolutely amazing. But man, was there anything else? The house, like the moments in the house were so just like, it's chef camp. You know what I mean? You're meeting up with people and you're sitting down and you're, hey, where are you from? Where are you from? Oh, you know this chef too? I know them too. Like, and then you're making the connections and all those things are happening. And they only got a small glimpse of it. We did a cheers, at some point in the house, but like there was so much camaraderie and
why were you wearing the chef coat?
I have no idea. No idea. I'm literally the only person like dressed down. I'm literally the only person. I think I might have, honestly, as I go back, I probably had the last interview that day. I think that was probably it. And I just came out really late and everyone was already like settled into the evening, drinking, sipping their wine, drinking the cocktails, whatever, eating food. And I was like the last person to come in. That's my best bet. But honestly, other than that, I have no idea. Because that was
or
so
you
weird.
had a lot of cocktails and you just were like, I'm throwing on a chef coat here.
And that's just what it is, dude. No, it was.
Wait, so is the confessional room in this season, was the confessional interview room like at the house or was it at the Top Chef kitchen?
No, at the house. We had it all at the house. So that was probably the first time that they had everything sort of like centralized. So we had like, again, we weren't privy to like 2/3 of the house. So we had our own third. And then there was like interview sectional, confectional area. And then the crew lived there as well. So yeah, man, we would have to go upstairs, walk through a hall, go upstairs again, up to like the attic to do our confessionals, and then come down to like where everyone else was in the common area. But man, that house was massive. So was
big. There multiple kitchens?
There was.
You don't even know the answer to that because
it could have been on the other side. It could have been on the other side. But where we were cooking, in the kitchen that we were occupying had like a butler's pantry that was the size of someone else's kitchen as well. It was just bigger than my kitchen at home. So like it had the butler's pantry and then it had the actual kitchen. So, I mean, so much room for activity, bro. You can like do cartwheels and like not hit anybody and just spin around and literally go crazy and just still have all the space in the world. There was like multiple refrigerators. Like who lived there? That's what I wanted to know. Who was there before? Like Daddy Warbucks or somebody, man. It was absolutely insane. Yeah.
I'm going to look this up after taping and figure out who's lived in that house. All right. So PTSD, you're watching this episode. You're feeling what? Nostalgia? Are you stressing? Anxiety? Is it, I feel like this was a torturous experiment. Like what kind of emotions are you feeling when you're watching this episode? Because it's been a few years.
It's been a few years and I haven't seen it since. So quite honestly, I forgot what dish I made for the first elimination challenge. I completely forgot. And then I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. So it was nostalgic for sure, especially seeing the Churchill Downs and just the Kentucky Derby sort of like theme. That to me immediately brought me back to day one. And the pit in your stomach and my stomach that I had just going before. I ran track before. I played sports, basketball, football. There's always that little sort of like pit right before the race starts or the tip off happens where you're just like, all the anxiety is happening. And I literally felt that like it was, I'm going into a fight or something like that. So I remember that feeling. That feeling came back. But then also like all the good memories too of the shop, hanging out with Nini. Nini became such cool, like her and I, we have a very similar sense of humor. And most of it is dirty. So just having her going out and I going back and forth in the house was amazing. Brandon, and Brian, seeing those two, they were really, really close with each other. And it was cool to catch their friendship. But I remember like, honestly, just those house moments that they didn't really show. And the competition, cool. The house moments that didn't really show. The competition was what it was. I think they did a really great job of showing the sort of like holistic view of all of it. But the things that weren't really caught on camera, the shops and again, meeting at the house and having those like sort of conversations about victories and losses and, where are you from and who do you cook under and all that. And just kind of connecting the dots with all these chefs. And you really see how small this world is. Cause even though we're all kind of spread apart, there's, 3 degrees of separation. Like, oh, I worked for this guy too, or I worked for her too, or I staged here. And you really get to kind of like respect everyone's sort of like chops. You know what I mean? Yeah, that was cool.
The pit in your stomach, you're probably going to have that in a good way, January 23rd.
Oh, I'm having it right now as you said it. As soon as you said it,
I'm sorry.
As soon as you said
I didn't mean to do that to you.
it.
January 23rd is a happy occasion, Eric, because that is the opening of your new restaurant in DC.
Yes,
Elmina is opening on the 23rd. If people want to get their reservations, you can do that now. Starting January 23rd, you're opening up your restaurant, which is in just a few weeks, not to terrify you. But tell people, the audience here, how excited you are, how much work has gone into this. Like, what does the final stage look like for you?
I'm actually in the space right now. The final stage is really, it's a mad dash, man. There's certificate of occupancy and health inspection that needs to happen, and fire alarm sort of ANSEL systems that need to be just checked and triple checked and all that. But then today, literally today, as I walked in, there was a massive shipment of all of our cookware. So like, we got stuff to cook with, and we're going to be cooking and testing out food for the next couple of weeks leading up into like the friends and family and obviously the opening. We released the reservations, and within an hour and a half, the first day completely booked. The second day,
so you can't go the January 23rd. There's going to be a wait list. You can wait for your set up an alert on the reservation, and maybe some will pop up. But that, congratulations, the first night is already booked.
Yeah, the first night's already booked, man. And that to me was just like, especially how fast and just. It was a relief, but then also it was like, oh, it's go time. Like, people are really excited. People are waiting for this. So I am fully staffed. That is a massive relief. I have my general manager, my assistant general manager, my chef de cuisine, and executive sous chef. They're downstairs as we speak, kind of getting things in order. Interviewing is happening. So like, it's all going down. And man, I'm so happy though. It's a pit in my stomach, because it's something that I've been thinking about quite literally since I was about 8 years old, man. I've been wanting to do this project, specifically serving, West African food from Ghana. And it's wild, man. I feel like I slap myself, like my younger self, a high five every time I walk into the space, because it's like, it's really like coming to life. So that's the awesome part about it, man. But art is being installed, kind of finishing touch-ups with paint is happening. My architect just walked through the space, just showing, the general contractor what to do and what things need to be fixed right before we open. So, bro, it's here. It's alive. It's happening. January 23rd, here in Washington, D.C. I can't wait to serve the district. I can't wait to serve anybody who comes through, honestly. And I think people are going to be really, really, really impressed. Yes, sir.
I'm pumped for you. Can't wait to go eat there. Once the break in the schedule happens, I'm there.
Please,
it's a huge accomplishment, and I'm just very, very excited to taste your food. And it's in some ways, I feel like even more of a expression of yourself. It's not like you're opening up a Croatian restaurant. It's not like you're opening up American cuisine. Like, you're doing Ghanaian cuisine, West African cuisine in DC, and this is you. This is you on a plate.
100%, man. I've worked in, going to school and learning like the French Brigade and, the French sort of styles of cooking, and Italian and all the other big sort of major cuisines. Absolutely delicious, absolutely amazing, and has a deserving right at the table, or seat at the table rather. But I've never saw my food, or the food that I grew up eating, celebrated in school or in the places that I worked in. And having the opportunity to kind of take all that knowledge that I have from, my school experience, from work experience, from Top Chef and other things like that, and kind of putting into the spin where I can present my food in a way that's just super authentic, but very much modern, and kind of just speaks to me. It's a cool moment, man. I got to say, this is the biggest moment of my career, and I'm thrilled to just share that with people. So, bro, can't wait to have you in here. Can't wait to have everybody else in here. It's going to be amazing, man. Elmina opens up January 23rd. Unfortunately, January 23rd is booked solid. But man, please go online, elminarestaurant.com, and book your reservations. And I can't wait to serve you.
I'm going to a New Year's Eve dinner we're taping this on Monday. This is going to be a Tuesday. I'm going out to dinner. It's only a 6:15 reservation because I'm going to have the kids. We got a babysitter. 6:15. What's the worst holiday to have to cook? Like, not just your own, like, I want to, experience this holiday, but also the patrons, like the people who are eating your food. Is everyone too drunk? Is it just going to be a shit show? Yeah. What is the least exciting for a chef? The least exciting holiday to have to cook for? The short straw of all the holidays that you don't want to have to pull.
I got to say, I'll answer with this. The worst shift, I think, objectively, is brunch. No one really likes doing brunch. Brunch usually falls on, or Mother's Day rather, falls on a Sunday. So that Sunday Mother's Day brunch is probably the worst because you're getting hit regardless, but you're getting hit like times 10. And then it's this sort of air of just like making everything perfect. People's moms are there. Like there's I don't know, man. This is like that I don't know how to explain it, man. It's just that sort of like extra weight. And maybe it's just a little bit of mom guilt and kind of shaming that's goes there.
We're all going to go talk to our therapist after this about
exactly.
why Mother's Day cook is the most stressful and worst.
Mother's Day cook is terrible. But you know what? New Year's Eve, I personally love it. It's a great opportunity to kind of celebrate and close out the year with the team. So yeah, we're cooking on New Year's Day, but if we really love what you do, you don't mind it. I don't mind it. I love cooking New Year's. I've done it many, many times. And it's a quick little time to just celebrate. You finish. You do a champagne toast with the team. You may go out with the team afterwards. So it's a really great like camaraderie moment. But man, objectively, I would say brunch and Mother's Day brunch. That's probably the worst. Yeah.
You're doing a brunch menu, right?
We're doing a brunch menu. Yeah. So Saturdays we have brunch, on Saturday, not Sunday though. Specifically.
Oh, okay. Good call.
Good call. Yeah. Listen, man, I know my way around this now at this point. So yeah, we're doing Saturday brunch, dinner from Tuesday to Thursday. Sorry, dinner from Tuesday to Saturday, and then close Sunday, Monday. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, man. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you don't have that Sunday brunch on the menu. That's for sure. Good.
Day for rest, man. Yeah. We try to get away from that as much as possible. It's a great day to just take off, honestly, and just kind of give everybody a day off. And then we come in on Monday and just do a heavy day of prep and just get ready for the week. So it's a nice little setup. Everybody knows that they have a day to look forward to as far as day off is concerned. And I value a work-life balance as well. Making sure that people have the time to be with their families, have their religious or sort of personal obligations taken care of. Like whatever you need to do on a Sunday, take care of it, come back refreshed. Let's go to work on Monday and get to it.
I'm excited. We're going to do this again. I don't know whether we're going to do after the opening or before the opening for your purposes. We'll stay in touch on when we're going to do it, whether it's a preview or a post-mortem on the first day or a celebration of the first day. We've done, if you haven't listened to it yet, Eric joined Kevin and I when we talked about the Bear and what it got right, what it got wrong, or some things that are, had a little creative license on the show about what it's like to open up a restaurant. You're living it right now. So I know for sure you're not going to be watching the Bear over the next couple of weeks because
I stopped watching it because... Yeah, I stopped watching it because, but it's funny. I'm like actually recording and documenting this as well. So I feel like there's somewhat of a Bear situation happening through all of this record. I've started recording the day I signed the lease, and this space did not look the way it did. So I'm sure if the editing happens, it's kind of looks like that as well, as you see me kind of work through the menu and then see the different chefs come in and as well. Like it's going to keep happening. So I can't watch it, no, because it just gives me massive anxiety. It really does. It's stress. Like I think for anybody, it's a stressful show, but specifically for me and other chefs out here, and from other people's mouths as well. Like you can't watch it. It's a lot. It's a lot to digest.
Well, I'm excited for you to go to the game tonight. You're in DC. Yeah. You got your Knicks outfit already on. You're ready to go. It should be. I hope for you guys it goes better than the last one where you had to go into overtime to stave off the juggernaut Washington Wizards.
No Jordan Poole, it was no Kuzma, and we still had to go to overtime. Yikes. So hopefully we can knock them out pretty soon in regulation. Yeah, that'd be good.
Packyourknives.com. Go subscribe. We already have a great post from Carly. We're also, you get the archives. So you get all the stuff that we've done in the past year. So go subscribe now. We're really excited to kick things off here. Eric, thanks so much for hopping on, and enjoy your New Year's and enjoy the Knicks and enjoy this final stage. I know you're documenting it, but you're going to look back on these butterflies that you're having, the pits in your stomach, and you're going to be like, wow, that was all healthy, because just showed how important this is to you to get this off the ground. So thanks for sharing all that with our audience here.
I appreciate it, bro. Happy New Year to you and to your family. Go Knicks. Go Lamina. Yeah.